Wanted to talk about judgment today. Um, it's something that is definitely so prevalent in our society, in our collective on this earth. We have been um, indoctrinated with to judge everything, and oftentimes, of course, the judgment is there in a way of protection, and it's a way for our ego to protect, to protect us. And so there's these places and spaces where we're constantly judging, and we're judging others and we're judging ourselves. And this really creates a distortion in your field if you're constantly in a chronic state of judging everything around you and judging primarily that everything is bad and that everything is negative, and you're always waiting for, something to go wrong and something to go bad. And when we're on this path of healing and we're on this journey of getting to know ourselves better and wanting freedom and wanting more peace in our life, then looking at judgment and how we are judging, whether ourselves or others, and the frequency of it as we are doing it is very important to have an awareness around and to come into a better understanding of what judgment means in your life. And if you're struggling with this, or if this is the first time that you're starting to really pay attention to judgment, then it can be very difficult to let go of because, like a lot of other things, it's a pattern that we're used to. So we're in a pattern of judging the external world. We're a pattern of judging what's wrong. We're in a pattern of looking for what the mistake is. And there may be many reasons why this happens. And certainly it can be a learned behavior. It could be a survival mechanism. It could be something that, you witness and watch as a child, one of your parents do, and it taught you that it was the way to be safe. And, when we're judging so often and in a chronic way, it also creates a dysregulation in our nervous system because there's a lot of energy that gets put out into judging everything all the time, right? So we're using a lot of our energy, a lot of our brain power, and we're fatiguing ourselves, including our adrenals. And all of this is part of that picture. And oftentimes, when I work with clients, let's say with physical conditions, then looking at the ways that they are judging life and themselves and others is actually a very critical point to free up energy in their body and for allow for more healing to happen in whichever way is necessary at that time, is to free up all this energy that's spent on judging circumstances all the time and not moving in a way of flow through life, right? So moving through flow of life would be and a way of acceptance of what's happening in every now moment, every now moment, every now moment, and flowing with that and not stopping to resist what's happening and judging what's happening. So that is something that I see that's, very, very prevalent within the clients that I work with. There's always a point where we need to touch upon and look at what are all the ways that you are judging life. And let's start to untangle from that pattern of judging everything. And a really great way to start to reframe it for yourself. So one, you need awareness first, right? To notice when you are judging. And the second thing that you can do is start to change your dialogue around around expressing that judgment. So one thing that I've done is when there is a judgment coming up and I'm quite being aware that I don't want to have any judgment in that day, then what I will say to myself is that there is an awareness of judgment here, right? So as soon as I say that, so choosing words like there is an awareness of judgment, I'm taking the I out of it. So I'm taking out that personalization out of what I'm judging, and it allows me to become the witness. It allows me to become the witness of what's happening so that I don't have to actually engage in it anymore. It immediately, for me, drops it in that moment. As soon as I say, oh, there's an awareness of judgment here, then I drop it because it's not where I want to be. And alongside with that, of course, is pausing and taking a breath when judgment is observed, allows for space to be released. So to be in that pause and to take that deep breath and to set that intention. Like today, I'm going to notice, all the places that I judge, right? So that as soon as I can see it, I know that this will already be shifting things for me, and that awareness, becomes curative as I'm noticing what I'm doing. And as I start to change my language, then I can start to judge others less. And if we judge others less, we end up actually judging ourselves less. And a whole bunch of energy becomes free when we can reduce the amount of judgment that we are doing. To say that we will never judge again, I'm not sure what your path, what is meant for your path. I certainly would love to never judge again, but I think that, there's judgment that gets into play into parts of our lives because it also is a place of discernment. But there's a difference between, having discernment on what's happening in a situation and then just going into a habitual, practice of judging everything that's happening in your life. So as we bring awareness to it, there is this aspect of it that gets released, right? And there is this thawing out, this untangling from this pattern of judging everything. So we want to choose, communication basically to the self that is conscious, loving, and gentle always, right? Conscious, loving, and gentle. That's how we want to be with ourselves. And we want to choose to speak with the self with this loving heart, right? And the more that we can do that, the more that we can do that with others, you will notice that your life starts to change in a more peaceful and flow-based type of way. And another way of releasing judgment as well is to focus on the things that are going right and not only focus on the things that are going wrong, because we tend to always want to focus on the things that are going wrong. So some questions you may want to ask yourself to help release judgment or to notice or to go deeper into what's happening is, what am I judging right now? And whatever I'm judging right now, how can I actually see this differently? And this thing that I'm judging, what is it actually trying to show me? Because generally it is trying to reflect back to you something. And maybe what is it that I need right now to love myself unconditionally in this moment? Because judgment really comes to a root, wound of not being loved, not being loved unconditionally, not being seen, and not feeling worthy. And so if we can give that to ourselves in that moment of giving ourselves that unconditional love, then it actually can also help to release the judgment and to help heal what's beneath it and what's actually there. And definitely you want to acknowledge your feelings. So as you move through these experiences, acknowledge how you're feeling. Trying to figure out circumstances all the time, can give you more anxiety and worry, and it actually can perpetuate that behavior you've learned. And that behavior oftentimes is an adaptation to fear. So recognize, what's happening. Recognize that maybe there's a behavior of worry. Recognize that there's a behavior of judgment. And make space for that feeling of worry, let's say, and allow it to be versus trying to solve it or resolve it in that moment, right? And when we ask those questions that I mentioned, we're asking them with curiosity, right? Because the more that we can understand ourselves better, the more that we respond differently to life. And the more that we can respond differently to life and not reacting to it, then life moves in a way that can be more of from a place of peace and understanding. And it doesn't mean that everything, is always going perfectly, and it doesn't have its uncomfortable moments or challenges. But the quality of how we're moving through life starts to change as we release these heavy, bags or heavy patterns of of judgment. And judgment is a really big one that frees up so much energy once you really start to understand that about yourself, what you're doing, and how it can actually be different. So let me know if this resonated with you today and if this helps. And let me know in the comments if there's anything that helps you when you're in a place of judgment.